Conscious Field Coherence and the Informational Substrate, a framework of gravity, electromagnetism, and subjective time. This video is speculative and intended to stimulate discussion and cross-disciplinary synthesis. The author welcomes critique, refinement, and collaboration from physicists, neuroscientists, and philosophers alike. This speculative idea proposes a unified ontological framework in which both gravity and electromagnetism, EM, emerge from a deeper informational substrate. Drawing from loop quantum gravity's spin networks and the holographic principle, it proposes that consciousness, via coherent EM field states, can interact with this substrate, thereby modulating the emergent behavior of spacetime and quantum fields. Such modulation may explain anomalous physical effects, subjective temporal distortion, and the relationship between quantum observation and reality formation. Modern physics offers compelling yet disjointed views of reality. General relativity describes gravity as the curvature of a smooth spacetime fabric, while quantum field theory presents particles and forces as excitations within discrete quantum fields. Loop quantum gravity, LQG, introduces spin networks, suggesting spacetime itself is quantized. Meanwhile, the holographic principle, particularly in ADS-CFT duality, hints that all of spacetime might be encoded on a lower dimensional boundary. This paper proposes a novel synthesis, that both spin networks and the holographic layer emerge from an even deeper informational substrate. Furthermore, we argue that conscious field coherence, a state of synchronized EM activity in conscious systems, interacts with this substrate to influence physical dynamics in both subtle and potentially observable ways. The informational substrate. I define the informational substrate as a foundational ontological structure from which space, time, matter, and energy emerge, not merely as a computational interface or model, epistemic, but as a real physical entity akin to a generalized spacetime foam. Unlike traditional quantum fields or geometries, this substrate does not reside within space or time, but instead generates them as emergent constructs. It may resemble a pre-geometric lattice or informational graph, with dynamics more fundamental than those described by the Planck scale. This ontological framing positions the substrate as a deeper physical reality, rather than a symbolic or epistemic abstraction. It may be akin to the it from qubit view, where spacetime geometry arises from informational relationships. But in my model, those relationships are physically instantiated and modifiable by field coherence. Integration of spin networks and the holographic principle. These two paradigms are not necessarily at odds. Spin networks, from LQG, describe the granular, discrete nature of spacetime volume elements via combinatorial graph structures. Holography encodes these volumetric states on lower dimensional surfaces, projecting 3D bulk geometry from 2D boundary information. The holographic boundary may serve as the informational input-output interface of the deeper substrate, while spin networks are the internal processing geometry, like a CPU's logic gates. Conscious field coherence. I propose that conscious field coherence, specifically synchronized electromagnetic, EM, activity in the brain-heart system, acts not as the source of consciousness itself, but as a dynamical mode through which consciousness can interact with and perturb the informational substrate. Drawing from orchestrated objective reduction, OR, I selectively integrate the notion that quantum gravitational thresholds within neuronal microtubules may serve as discrete event triggers for consciousness-relevant coherence. Rather than asserting OR as the sole model of consciousness, use its threshold criterion as a mechanism by which coherent EM field states might entrain microtubular processes, facilitating moments of substrate resonance. The coherence does not cause consciousness, but allows consciousness to act as a low-entropy informational structure, capable of modulating foundational physics. Consciousness and subjective time as perturbative feedback. Temporal subjection theory suggests that consciousness may not passively observe time, but actively shape its flow. In this framework, we hypothesize that conscious field coherence perturbs the time operator in quantum systems. This would introduce a bias or asymmetry in how the informational substrate generates temporal sequence, effectively allowing subjective temporal states to influence the emergent structure of objective time. In analogy to a quantum system's Hamiltonian being perturbed by external fields, we frame subjective consciousness as a resonant perturbation on the temporal generation process, subtly shifting probabilities, phase relations, or decoherence thresholds within the substrate's geometry. If this framework holds, it reframes the observer effect in quantum mechanics as an active reconfiguration of reality via consciousness. Time becomes a negotiation between substrate-level information flow and cognitive coherence. Consciousness may not simply reside in the brain but function as a field-based coherence generator, capable of interacting with a universal informational substrate. This deep layer, beneath spin networks and holographic encoding, may serve as the bridge through which mind and matter truly meet. Further theoretical development and rigorous interdisciplinary research are essential to move this framework from speculation to testable hypothesis.